Sports Talk 1080, the Team Orlando's Tuck and O'Neill. It's Mike Tuck. I'm Jerry O'Neill. We thought we'd get the football out and talk about Heisman candidates. Now, we're under a month or about a month away from that trophy being awarded. A lot of people had Leonard Fournette running away with it until he met the Alabama front four and maybe defensive 11, right?
Yeah, no, that was very impressive effort by Alabama's defense. Maybe we give their front four some kind of a Heisman trophy. But, it's still 2/3 of the season done and 1/3 to go. So we still have a lot of football to play. I wrote down 11 names last week. And technically, you could probably cross off, I think, Paxton Lynch at this point because Memphis went down, and that was about his only chance that Memphis could go unbeaten as their quarterback. He's one of the top quarterbacks for the NFL as well. But to me, even though Fournette struggled, Fournette's still the guy in the lead at this point. Leads the nation in rushing, has just been the best player in the country all year long. And I think if you watched the game against Alabama, you realize it wasn't as much Leonard Fournette struggling as his offensive line struggling and the defensive line getting in there.
But, I mean, those guys don't get the credit. They're not on the Heisman ballot or anything like that. But, yeah, his candidacy takes a hit. There's no question about it. Like you mentioned, they got tough games coming up. LSU's got games against Arkansas.
Right.
They're at Ole Miss. They get Texas A&M. And the likelihood is they won't play an SEC championship game. But so that's to be determined. But he comes back to the pack. There's no question about that. A guy that I don't think gets enough, honestly, is Dalvin Cook of Florida State. Without Dalvin Cook, where would Florida State be? Mm-hmm. Now, you may say the same thing about Leonard Fournette, and yet in games where Florida State has lost, Dalvin Cook has been a bright night, including the one at Clemson. The second play of the game, he goes 74 yards for a touchdown. He's averaging over 8 yards per carry this year. His touchdown runs have been unbelievable, and they played enough quality competition. But, I don't understand why he doesn't get a little bit more.
I think he does. I give him a ton of credit. I mean, he would be certainly a candidate to be invited to New York right now, and it may even come home with the award just because he's so great. And that's why I don't move Fournette off the top spot, because he is still individually great. Certainly Derrick Henry made a case for himself, but there's never been a point where I thought Derrick Henry was the best player in the country.
No.
He's part of a great football team, and that could help him out. Same thing with Zeke Elliott in Ohio State. He's put together an amazing season so far. He's just 10 yards behind Henry on the season. Trevon Boykin, I know they lost last week, and he threw a couple of bad passes, ended up with 4 interceptions, but a couple of them were definitely on him. But he is as phenomenal as any player in the country, leading TCU at quarterback. And one loss doesn't eliminate you just yet, I don't think.
One loss doesn't eliminate you just yet, but his performance contributed wildly to that.
Oh, it did.
And
there's no question. But
it would take a free fall.
Mulligan.
A free fall by a couple of other players.
Oh, I don't know about that, because everyone has losses. I mean,
his was a major contribution in their losing.
And you know what? They could still go on and be a part of the college football playoff by the time we get to the Heisman Trophy ceremony. So, to me, he's not eliminated. Josh Johnson, his receiver, is still leading American receptions. And how about Corey Coleman? He's got 20 touchdowns for Baylor. I mean, that can't be ignored, can it?
No, it can't be ignored. And he, it's going to be interesting how he performs in these more high-profile games, including this week against Oklahoma, where in the last couple of years, Baylor has just throttled Oklahoma, and he's been a star among stars, at least in the most recent game a year ago. So it'll be interesting. He'll get more high-profile coverage by the very nature, again, that our leader, Leonard Fournette, comes back a little bit, and he's going to be, we're talking about Coleman now, front and center on some of these big games, including the one this weekend.
And Deshaun Watson's played his big games, but he's in the conversation. I want to put him in the lead or that close to it right now, but we'll see how the season ends up for him and Clemson this year. And another guy off the pace, you just mentioned Oklahoma. How about Baker Mayfield is quietly putting together an outstanding season as their quarterback. If they win out the rest of the way and they beat TCU and beat Oklahoma State and beat Baylor along the way, he's going to find himself in New York if he plays as well as he has to this point in the season.
But I agree with you, Leonard Fournette at the top, but with the performance, as he carries 31 yards in the humbling loss to Alabama, the pack moved toward him. He came back to the pack a little bit.
Right, but you make a good point about Cook, too. You can't ignore individual greatness. This is why Cook and Fournette probably both still belong in New York.
All right, we'll follow it, obviously. We talk college, NFL football every day on the radio, 3 to 7 weekdays on Sports Talk 1080, The Team Orlando.